What it do, family? All right, today we just touching on part like 10 pages or so. We're gonna get this cracking on the part three of the ancient Mayan, knowledge. So we're gonna continue this book and we're gonna get up out of here. My bad for the weight, moving around right now type shit. But yeah, family, we're gonna get this cracking. I'm gonna give everybody a couple minutes to get up in here. If not, I'm gonna just start reading and post it, and y'all can, refer back to it. But yeah, this one gonna be good. It's gonna be good. It's gonna give a little bit more knowledge, where or connect a couple more dots that's not connected right now. But yeah, for sure, show. Yeah, I'm about to get this cracking. I'm not really gonna wait too long. If you want a recap of kind of what happened, just go watch the last live to see where we left off at. But we kind of going to pick up where we stopped at in the last one. Guess I'm gonna start at right there where you see reverting. Reverting to figure 17 from the Codex Dresdenus, I draw attention that it furnishes definite proof that the Mayans associated the idea of immovable seated star with twin deities, and they connected the S symbol with the cross and rain symbols. A striking combination of the latter symbols is represented under the principal seated figures. It consists of a diagonal cross transverse perpendicularly by a band of blue water. By a band of blue water. Maya cross symbols should be curiously examined here. Figure 18, 1, 2, 3, what's that, 6, 7, and 9 or 8. They will be found to consist of variations of two fundamental types, often figured alongside of each other and enclosed in a square or circle. One type consists of two diagonally crossed bars, playing or representing crossed bones. That's a gem right there, right? A rectangular or a rectilinear cross with interlaced circle is also found. The other type exhibits a small cross, square, circle, or dot in the center of the square with a circle in each corner. In some cases, they are united by a series of dots to the central circle and thus form a diagonal cross, which sometimes figure as contained in a flower with four petals, such as is also found in Mexican symbolism. The diagonal dotted cross is frequently combined with four pairs of black bars placed in the middle of each side of the square, pointing towards the center. Similar pairs of black bars are figured in the BNMS on the manta of Michelangelo with stars around one of his symbols, a spider. They likewise recur on two of several sacrificial papers, page 69, amongst which one exhibits a diagonal cross. Hold on, let me turn to the next page. Yoko, sis, what it do? Appreciate you tapping in with me. We're just picking up where we left off, basically on the last one. I'm not going to be too long on this one. We're probably going to be on here probably like an hour. Just go over like 10 pages, and and get to this knowledge for sure. So let me go to the next John right quick though. Mm-mm-mm-mm. All right, I got the green screens up today so everybody can follow along. All right, so where we stopped at cross, right? So we'll go back to the last sentence. The following table presents the bare outline of the scheme of or wait, hold on, okay. Let me make sure. My bad, y'all. Okay. All right, there you go. My bad. All right. They likewise recur on two of several sacrificial papers, amongst which one exhibits a diagonal cross, another the S sign, while others display realistic drawings of the stars on 6 or 8 points. The pairs of bars figure in the hieroglyph designated by Maya scholars as the sign for kin, right? The sun, which may be seen in the center of a large diagonal cross symbols in figure 18, blah, 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 in the Dresden Codex, right? But kin, y'all know, kin means son in Mayan, right? In the Mayan language, and we call each other what? Kinfolk, sonfolk, right? The cross of figure 18 is composed of two bones and two arrow points, a particularly interesting combination considering that in the Maya, a bone is Bak, a arrow is Kab Sha'il, and the name given to the gods of the four quarters, the sustainers of the world, is Bakab, right? It cannot be denied that the phonetic elements of this name occur in the words for bones and arrows, which form the cross symbolic of the four quarters. In figure 18, the cross may be composed of four bones, but of this I am not certain. In both cases, however, the cross rests on a curious double and parti-colored symbol and are associated with serpent signs in which the open jaws and teeth are prominent features. It is noteworthy that while Khan, I know it say can, but it's pronounced Khan. It can be spelled with a C or a K, right? It is noteworthy. It's usually spelled with a K. It is noteworthy while Khan or Kam is the Maya for serpent. The word Kamach means jaw. The figure consisting of the upper jaw only of a serpent in the left-hand corner of the band above proves therefore to be a cursive phonetic sign for serpent, right? So you're not only seeing this is all consisting within the language, I mean within their drawings and hieroglyphs, but also within the languages, right? So everything is kind of connected. The party colored symbol combined with the cross obviously signifies a duality such as light and darkness, the above and the below, and a series of dualities, possibly the two divisions of the year, the dry and rainy seasons. It meant way more than that, but we just reading what she writing, right? In Mexico, we are authorized by documentary evidence to give a wider and deeper interpretation of the symbol of duality, for it can be absolutely proven that the Mexican philosophers divided the heavens into two imaginary portions and respectively identified these with the male and female principles, right? In Nuac, the West was designed as Siwatalampa, the place or part of the women, right? So Siwatalampa is the place or part of the women. The souls of the women who had earned immortality were supposed to dwell there, whilst the souls of the men resided in the east. In the appendix to Book 3 of Sawagan Historia, it is now described how, according to the native belief, the souls of the male warriors held the daily appearance of the sun above the eastern horizon and escorted it to Napantla, the zenith. Here, the souls of the women awaited it and assumed the duty of escorting the sun to the western horizon, the symbol for which Kali equals the house. The above passage indicates that the native philosophers imagined across the middle of the sky a line of demarcation separating the portions of the heaven respectively allotted it to the male and female souls. Let me change this page for y'all so y'all can follow along. I appreciate everybody for rocking with me, tapping in. We just going over some ancient Mayan knowledge. I'm showing you how everything basically connects from the above and the below, which practices our people practice even how the phonetic or the language is all included in all of this. Everything encompasses one another. Like everything is connected, right? We're gonna get to it. And it's gonna show you the real history of Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, and all of that. I'm not sure if we touching on in depth how who Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl was because that was a real person, right? Um, but you let them tell it, it's just some type of deity or whatever, which it encompasses that, it represents that in essence, but it was an actual person that came there and gave these so-called ancient Mexicans the knowledge that they have right now, right? Oh well, not right now because they ain't no ancient. We are the ancient motherfuckers. It's a personal title and deity. Which one, cuz? Which one is a personal title and deity? Yeah. Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, yeah, exactly. It's a person, title, and deity, exactly. All right, let me change this page so y'all can follow along. All right, boom. All right, we on this page. All right, where we left off, let me read that last sentence over. The above passage indicates that the native philosophers imagined across the middle of the sky a line of demarcation, the separating the portions of the heaven respectively allotted to the male and female souls. For 4 years after death, these souls retain their human form, and then, after passing through 9 successful heavens, enter into the celestial paradise where they assume the forms of different kinds of butterflies and hummingbirds. Right? We're gonna get to the non-heaven, we're gonna get to all of that, right? The names of these are enumerated in the Wak text of Salgan's Lawrence. I don't know how to say that. The symbolism of the hummingbird has already been explained by a passage cited from Gomorrah's Historia. In this connection, it is extremely interesting to find that the hummingbird represented in BNMS as sucking honey from a flower, which is attached by a cord covered with birds down to a bone, the symbol of death, right? This peculiar but expressive group of symbols figures only on the headdresses of deities wearing certain other symbols, amongst which we find the Eka Kazkak and the Eka Shonquilili, the image of Ursa Minor had already described. The merest indication of the association of a circumpolar constellation with the idea of death, which is represented as disappearance, and resurrection, reappearance, is of special interest since the ancient Mexicans located the underworld, the place of the dead, in the north. Reflections show, however, that such an association can only have suggested itself to the minds of star observers living in southern latitudes approximate to the equator or in localities where the northern horizon was more or less shut off from view by intervening mountains. In such places, Polaris would appear comparatively close to the boundary line of the northern sky, so that the Ursa constellations in Cassiopeia will be invisible to the local astronomers at midnight during that period of the year when one or the other of these star groups seemingly stretch between Polaris and the northern horizon. All right, let me change this. Right. Yoko, bro. Let me change this so everybody can follow along. Yeah, we getting to it real fast too. All right. So where we left off at, right there, the Ursa constellations and Cassiopeia would be invisible to local astronomers at midnight during that period of the year when one or the other of the star groups seemingly stretch between Polaris and the northern horizon. A glance at plate I shows that at the present time it is about the period of the autumnal equinox that the Ursa Minor will be invisible at midnight in such localities, while Ursa Major will gradually disappear from view towards midnight during a certain number of nights, according to latitude and locality. Between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice, Castle Field would seem to hover above the horizon. All right. So this shit is some gems that they really breaking down, right? And I told you, a lot of our most ancient practices comes from as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul, right? Which basically encompasses a lot, but everything is connected, right? And it starts with astronomy at parts of its roots, right? Astronomy, agriculture, the soul, body. We can keep going on, but this is like the roots of this, right? When our ancient ancestors start studying these constellations. All right, and where I left off at, I still got that green screen up. Where I left off at. All right, the autumnal equinox, the winter solstice, whilst Castle Field would seem to hover above the horizon. The total or partial alternate periodical disappearance of the two familiar star groups in the extreme north and their reappearance after sometimes regular intervals of time could but have made a profound impression upon primitive astronomers and thinkers. My bad for that choppy read. Whilst the mere periodical reversal of positions of Cassiopeia and Ursa Major suggested alternate victory and defeat, the actual, though brief and partial disappearance of either star group must have appeared to be a descent into the underground space associated with darkness and death, followed by resurrection, right? So that's the way they kind of, seen it, even with the, when you go to the ancient Mexicans with Ursa Major or Ursa Minor or Huitzilopochtli and Tezcatlipoca, right? It's the same kind of concept, right? In his Chronica, Tezozomoc records besides Mictlan, I ain't going to it, the land of the dead, or I really know how to say that, the Mictlan of the dead, another name of the underworld, Opochka Akan, literally the place of the house to the left. The appellation can only be understood when it is realized that in a sufficiently southern latitude, an observer watching the setting of a circumpolar constellation below the horizon would always see it disappear to his left and subsequently rise to his right. It is evident that in time this fact will give rise to the association of the left with the underworld, the lower region, and the right with the region above. The native idea of dwelling in the underworld is further demonstrated by the bestowal of the symbol Kali equals house upon the western horizon below all heavenly bodies were seen to disappear. Yeah, all right. A definite connection between the west and one half of the north being thus established, it would naturally result that a corresponding union of the south and east would be thought of in time, and that these quarters would become associated with the rising of celestial bodies, i.e., with light, the above, while the opposite quarters became identified with the setting, i.e., darkness, the below. All right. So I hope everybody follow along. It's making sense, man. It's a lot of gems that this lady dropping, and wait till we get towards the end of this session, and y'all gonna see it shows not only proof, we know our migration stories, we know that where our ancestors traveled from or where they began and all of the whole nine, right? But this is just further proof when we're reading this, and y'all gonna see how certain artifacts were found in certain places where current history said, these people had no contact with each other, right? Now, pausing to review the foregoing conclusions. Oh, let me change this for y'all. Hold on. Next, John. Pausing to review the foregoing conclusions, which I have shown to be natural and inevitable result of simple, prolonged astronomical studies, observation, and plain reasoning, we see that they led to a conception of the cosmos as divided into seven parts, i.e., the fixed center, the pivot, primarily suggested by Polaris, who was regarded as the creative, generative, and ruling power of the universe. The four quarters, seemingly ruled by the central force and associated with the elements. The above and the below, suggested by the rising and setting of celestial bodies and with light and darkness, sky and earth, etc., etc. Many of my readers will doubtless recognize at once that the above organization of the cosmos into the center or middle, the above and the below, and the four quarters is precisely that which the Zuni priests taught Mr. Frank Cushing when they initiated him into their secret beliefs. Other explorers have recorded the same conception amongst different Native American tribes, and with these proof and with these proofs that this set of ideas is still held on our continent at the present time, I point out that the fact that the Maya figures become perfectly intelligible only when interpreted as representing the center, the four quarters, the above, and the below, the latter figured by the dark and light halves of the dual sign, right? We see duality everywhere, right? Furthermore, I can demonstrate that this fundamental set of elementary abstract ideas furnishing the first principles of organization is plainly visible under the surface of the ancient Mexican civilization and can be traced not only in Yucatan and Central America, but also in Peru. In these countries, as I shall show, it assumed an absolute dominion over the minds of native sages, directly suggesting the forms of government and social organization existing at the time of the conquest and faintly surviving to the present day. It entirely controlled the development of Aboriginal religious cult and philosophical speculations and pervaded not only that native architecture and decorative art, but also all superstitious rites and ceremonies and entered into the very games and pastimes of the people. Right? Let me see where we at. Oh nah. So we gonna see how this is gonna connect. It's gonna connect up north. We gonna see in a little bit, right? And I'm gonna change this page, so I gotta change it later. And I want y'all to be able to look at this while I read this little last paragraph, the last one. The following table presents the bare outline of the scheme of organizations exposed in the preceding text. In making it, I have, after due consideration, definitely adopted the assignment of the Mexican symbols and colors to the cardinal points given by Friar Duran in the calendar swastika contained in his atlas and reproduced. Before proceeding, now we can take a second and y'all, you can look at this. Y'all can screenshot this too, right? Now this is tell you what all the colors represent, the signals, the elements, the cardinal points, and you can see how it all eventually comes together, right? As Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan, right? So Quetzalcoatl, the divine twin, which is really Kukulkan, the dual generative ruling and directive force. And then in two brackets below them, you see the below on the left and then the above on the right. The female region, which equals Tezcatlipoca and Michoacán. I remember me telling you that those two so-called deities represents the female, but they are not really different guys or deities. They are just different representations of the supreme creators, which is a man and a woman. That you need that when they come in harmony, that creates divinity, right? But you need that in biology to create another person. So when we get down to the root of everything, it all makes sense. Now, when you go to the right hand side, you see Wazalopochitili, right? The male region. And then under their brackets, you can see what the below or the female is represented and the above or the male region and what the male is represented as, right? So the color red is associated with the below. Fire is associated with the below. Warmth is associated with the below. The the tekpat, or the flint, right? Or the flint knife, which is important, right? We're gonna get to some of its importance today. We're gonna dwell on more of it later, right? Or the tekpat, you see that? That's a flint. That's a flint knife, right? That's the spark of life. Then you have west, right? Then you have the Kali, which equals house. You have yellow. You have earth, right? Mother Earth. You have darkness, right? The womb, right? Then on the above, on the opposite side, right? You see the male is represented as the south for cardinal point, and below that is the act or the cane, right? As a symbol. Then you have blue as a color represented by the male. All right, it's probably one of my favorite color, blue. You feel me? From a kid, I didn't even know it. You have air, right? You have breath. Yeah, my neighbor's tripping. All right. You have air, you have breath, right? Then you have east, you have the rabbit, which is kind of, I'm curious about that because I know usually the rabbit, even within um, their, I guess, mythology or spiritual practices, the rabbit was revered or revered as the associated with reproductivity, as in other ancient societies. So really don't know. But we're gonna get back to that. We're gonna touch all of that. It's 600 pages in this book. Believe me, we're gonna touch all of this. Um, Now we got green, right? And you got water, right? And rain, right? So yeah, a quick thing, right? So the woman represents earth, the male represents the rain. They come together. What does that do? The earth getting rain that produces agriculture, right? You need both divinity. It's not one or the other. Without the water, the land is gonna go desert, right? So we need all of this to make one, right? To make everything work. Everything is connected. But let's continue on. Now, before proceeding to examine more closely the great edifice or edifice of human thought, which was reared in the course of centuries on the ground plane designated above, we must retrace our steps and consider what a deep impression the gradual realization of changes in the relative positions of Polaris and certain familiar star groups must have produced upon those who were the first to realize them. Transporting ourselves back to the great dawn of civilization, let us endeavor to understand the position of native priest astronomers who, having received and transmitted a set of religious and cosmical ideas based on the assumption of the absolute and eternal immutability of the center of the heaven, Polaris gradually became aware that it also was the subject to change, evidently obeyed an unseen higher power, and that the ancient order of things recorded by their predecessors had actually passed away, right? So they say shit changed, and that's what another thing they say, we didn't keep records. We did, always. The first records that we kept was dealing with astronomy, right? And as I taught in these other two parts, that are the ones who possess the most power or the most knowledge, right? Gradually possess the most power, right? And yeah. So the ancient ways they always wrote down, but the descendants always built upon those. So what they basically said, the way it was ain't the way it is now, basically. Um, that in all centers of astronomical observation and intellectual culture, a complete revolution of fundamental doctrine or thought must have taken place. A period of painful misgivings and doubt must have been passed through, during which an earnest and anxious observation of all celestial bodies must have seemed imperative and obligatory. That's why we have the records today, because we know how to keep them. Exactly. Exactly. We kept the best records and the first records, the oldest record. Exactly. So it's obligatory. Where I left off. Where was that? Obligatory. Where was that? I'm just going. Okay, I see. All right. Yeah. A period of painful misgivings and doubt must have been passed away, during which an earnest observation of all celestial bodies must have seemed imperative and obligatory. And under such circumstances, astronomy must have made great strides, and astronomical observation became the foremost and highest duty of the intellectual leaders of the native races. As I was saying earlier, pyramids and temples would be built for the purpose of verifying and recording the positions of sun, moon, planets, and stars, and the orientation of these buildings would be carefully planned accordingly, right? Let me change this page for y'all, but that makes total sense. And pyramids and temples, that wasn't the only reason they was built, but it was one of the major reasons they was built, and they was built under certain constellations. They was built under certain stars, right? Because they knew that these certain places possess powerful energy, right? Or what you would call ley lines. Now, ley lines are so-called invisible lines that's connected all over the world from different energy spots. And most of those spots are where pyramids and big architecture was built, as far as in old churches with bells. It's all type of shit, right? But ley lines, that's our ancestors understood what ley lines were before it had a fucking name. You hear me? But yeah. Hold on. All right, we're gonna go to the next page. All right, so before obtaining glimpses of the great evolution of religious thought which progressed on our continent in olden times, it is well to realize by means of Piazzi, Smith's maps, that the world ceased to possess a brilliantly conspicuous, absolutely immovable pole star for a prolonged period of time, stretching somewhere between 500 BC and 1200 AD. The ancient native chronicles record that under divine leadership, great migrations of tribes took place within this period, the purpose of which was to find a locality which fulfilled certain ardently desired conditions connected with religious code from various centers of civilization. So this telling you that they've been traveling, like we've been moving around the Americas, we've been moving around, you feel me? And a lot of it started with astronomy. Matter of fact, we use astronomy to guide us, right? We use Polaris at night, right, to guide us, right? Which is, the North Pole, North Star, whatever y'all want to call it, right? A lot of different names, Orion, all that, right? No, not Orion, it's another name, but Orion's a constellation, but that encompasses Polaris in that. But all right, the native chronicles record that under divine leadership, great migrations of tribes took place within this period, the purpose of which was to find locality which fulfill certain ardently desired conditions connected with religious code. From various centers of civilization in Mexico and Central America, we also hear different accounts on how at different times, small bands of earnest men under a leader of superior intelligence bent on a peaceable but unexplained errand arrived from distant regions and departed for an unknown goal after delaying just long enough to teach social organization and impart a higher civilization to the tribes encountered on their passage. That same, exactly, says North Star. That same, what I just read is what we did around the world. It's literally what we did around the world. It's literally what we did around the world. We did that to the Egyptians, or we know the ancient Egyptians over. I'm not gonna get into all that right now, right? We know the most ancient pyramids is here, right? But we did that to the Hindustani. We went around and spread our knowledge, right? And it's recorded of that. It's different books. It's different. You just got to know where to look and know where to find a lot of this knowledge or information. But I'm gonna read that part again because I felt as though that was very powerful. From various centers of civilizations in Mexico and Central America, we also hear different accounts of how at different times small bands of earnest men under a leader of superior intelligence bent on a peaceable but unexplained errand arrived from distant regions and departed for an unknown goal after delaying just long enough to teach social organization and impart a higher civilization to the tribes encountered on their passage. That's fire. They preserved the memory of the title of the leader in their different languages, and he became the culture hero of their tribe, i.e. Kukulkan, right? Kukulkan, right? Quetzalcoatl, right? The fact that in each of these sages taught the ignorant tribes, we start that over. The fact that in each case, these sages taught the ignorant tribes the division of time and instituted the calendar proves that they were skilled in astronomy, right? From a sentence uttered by Montezuma to the native astronomers whom he termed the sons of the night, we learned that it was their custom to climb mountains as so to study the stars. When one considers the full import of to be faced by these ancient sages who earnestly endeavored to account for the great changes which had taken places in the heavens within the memory of man, it seems natural to suppose that many an expedition was undertaken for the purpose of acquiring further astronomical knowledge of finding perhaps the movable star which had been revered in past sages by ancestors of the native race. Now, as we read, or as I'm reading, as we reading, right, we know how to, look at which for what they are. So when they say suppose and they say different words like that, like I kind of throw that shit away. I mean, I don't throw it away. Like I take it into consideration, but I know they don't fully know. You understand? So I kind of use my own discernment with other knowledge I acquired from other places to give me a better understanding, right? The code of Polaris might well have been made. Such expeditions assumed the aspect of an imperative religious duty and sacred pilgrimage, as all expeditions across Mexico and Central America would necessarily be limited by the oceans and be fruitless as far as Polaris was concerned. It is obvious that the line of exploration which would be ultimately adopted would run from south to north and vice versa. A small band of enthusiasts setting forth under the leadership of some of the most advanced thinkers of time would undoubtedly have been prepared to devote their entire lives to the object in view. All right, let me change this for y'all right quick. Boom. All right, bet that up. All right, but we stopped there, right there, the object in view. As long as a single member of such an expedition existed, he would be powerful and an active agent in spreading the fundamental set of ideas derived from the observation of Polaris. And lapse of time, by transmission, its influence might travel to a region too remote, perhaps, for direct contact. to have taken place. If I have indulged in the foregoing line of conjecture and surmise, it is because it is my purpose also to demonstrate by absolute proof that the dominion of the above set of ideas extended over Yucatan, Honduras, Guatemala, and even reached Peru, where its influence is distinctively visible. All right, let me drink some water right quick. All right. It is also extended far to the north in prehistoric times for a certain carved shell gorgets. Now, peep this. It is also extended far to the north in prehistoric times. Prehistoric, before history was recorded, right? For certain carved shell gorgets, which have been found in prehistoric graves in Illinois, Missouri, and Tennessee, exhibit emblems which have definite meanings in the Maya language spoken in Yucatan. So what that's telling you, right? Like when we say some of our tribes actually descend, and we got more, way we don't got to go to prehistoric times. We got more current times, right? But when we say some of our tribes are descendants of the Mayans, this is what we mean, right? So yeah, and you know, we different depending on what your tribe is, you have different migration stories, and you know, you'll know your own history better than I would, hopefully. In order to maintain this assertion, I must take a slight digression from the main subject and revert to the myth already cited, recording the casting down from heaven of Tezcatlipoca, who arose and descended again in the form of an ocelot. Right? You remember the emblem of America that I love showing y'all with the queen, with me, not the queen, with the sister up there with the cat around her body that I told y'all is more likely an ocelot because it's actually indigenous to the area of Cali, Mexico, all of that, right? There are interesting native pictures of this combat and the fall of the ocelot in the Vatican Codex. And others equally important representing the fall or descent of an eagle from the sky, to which I shall revert. It is moreover recorded by Mendieta that Tezcatlipoca likewise descended or let himself down from the sky by a spider's thread, and in Bodleian there are two curious pictures, one of an ocelot and a cobweb, the other of an ocelot descending head foremost from stars. The same incident is also pictured in the Vienna Codex, where the ocelot attached by the tail is connected by a cord with star emblems, right? And you remember me telling you, so if you follow along from the first parts, I told you Tezcatlipoca and Michelante, y'all just seen the map. Y'all just seen that both Tezcatlipoca and Michelantecutli is both represented by the below or by the female region, right? So they basically the same type, quote unquote deity, but we know they're not deities. The second is that the spider is figured on the manta of Michelantecutli in the BNMS and is sculptured in the center above his forehead. And his sculpture image identifies such Senor Sanchez and reproduce here. Hold on, let me change this for y'all and let me go see what my dog barking right quick. Hold on, I'll be right back. All right, he ain't barking at nothing. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so we left off on Michelin Tecutili. Oh no, where we at? Not really sure most fans think Undala being seen like this. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we right here. Um, Now it represents the Lord of the North or Underworld, descending head foremost with tech pot or flint knife issuing from his mouth, and with outspread limbs, the outlines of which almost lost under the multitude of symbols which are grouped around him. Right, so y'all can really zone in on this. This is what she's talking about right here. These symbols are carefully analyzed in my commentary on the BNMS, in which I also describe other known carved representations of the same conception and point out analogous pictures in the Maya codices. The position of the limbs of the descending figure is best understood by a glance at figure 22 from the Dresden Codex. It represents a bark with cross symbols from which a human is descending. The feet rest on dual symbols about that ain't what I'm talking about which could be more written than the scope of the present papers allow. A tet pot or flint knife attached to the body by a double bow with ends may be seen between the dual symbols, and its presence is of the utmost importance, since it proves that the Mayas also associated the flint knife with the same figure. Instead of the head, the body exhibits a sort of equidistant cross with four circles. Strange to say that the only analogous cross figures I have been able to find in all codices are those reproduced in figure 20. And I'm gonna show y'all what that is. Let me change this. And she's talking about these right here. So to find all codices that are reproduced in figure 21, Roman number 3 and 4. The latter exhibits a curious conventionalized flower growing on the top of a pyramid. Its stem and leaves are painted brown and are spotted resembling the skin of an ocelot. As there is a Mexican flower, the tigridia, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right, of which the name was shit. I think I pronounced it right. It may be that it is this which is thus represented. Figure 20, Roman number 3 from BNMS figures a sacred cake alongside the S symbol shown kulili, breads which were made in honor of Ursa Minor at a certain feast. Finally, figure 20, Roman number 1 represents a certain kind of ceremonial staff which is inserted between two peaks of a mountain, a favorite method employed by native scribes to convey the idea of the object figure. The object was figured in the exact center. This kind of staff occurs frequently in certain codices, sometimes being carried by a high priest. It invariably exhibits a flower-like figure with 5 circles and is surmounted by a tek pot or flint knife, right? And the flint knife, the tek pot, that's just the the knife that struck life, that sparked life, right? And that's the best way I can explain it right now. We're gonna get to more of a deep meaning later. Without pausing to discuss the subject, without pausing to discuss the subject fully, I merely point out here that collectively these symbols explain each other and convey the idea of the center and the four quarters evidently associated with the tekpat, the symbol of the north, and the ocelot, as shown kulili equals Ursa Minor. It is particularly interesting to find that the outspread human body is made to serve as a sort of a cross symbol. A careful study of the conventional representation of the face of the Lord of the North in Figure 19 gives the impression that it was also used to convey the idea of duality, right? Or the union of two in one. That's all I be fucking saying. Cause when we come together as one, they can't fuck with us in nothing. You feel me? I don't care about, like, definitely as man and woman. You feel me? That's why I don't get into the little gender wars. To me, they goofy as fuck. I know real sisters that love me in real life. Like, I don't understand it. And I love my sisters. You hear me? Yeah, it's goofy, but shit, us. That's how they defeat us. Period. You feel me? They divide and conquer. That's a real thing. You feel me? They use us to fight each other, but when we're united as one, they can't fuck with us. Nobody can fuck with us, cuz, in no level, on no type of nothing. They not more creative than us. They not more intelligent than us. They're not more athletic. They can't beat us in nothing. It's nothing. I don't see nothing they can beat us in. Shit, nothing. All right, well, yeah. Let me continue. Words, sis. I don't see it. All right, without pausing, past that, shown clearly is all right. All right, the upper half of the. Now, let me just read that last sentence again. A careful study of the conventional representation of the face of the Lord of the North in Figure 19 gives the impression that it was also used to convey the idea of duality or the union of two in one. The upper half of the face exhibits a numeral on either cheek under eye, seeming to convey the idea of dualities. The two circular ear ornaments united by a band above the head and the two nostrils united in one nose seem to convey the idea of the union of the dualities, whilst the lower half of the face, which is rendered strikingly different to the upper half by being in higher relief and marked with perpendicular lines, exhibits a mouth from which a flint knife with a symbolic eye and fangs carved on it is hanging like a tongue. All right, let me change this so everybody can follow along. Yeah, all right. So we at where it just said hanging like a tongue. I have already shown that the flint knife was regarded as the sacred producer of the vital spark, right? That's what I was talking about. I may add here that I also found in the codices tekpatal or tekpat symbol in which the curved symbol of the air or breath was figured. You remember that it stands that's the above symbolism, right? To my idea, the sculptured face is meant to symbolize the dual creator, the dispenser of the spark and breath of life, whilst the human skull on his back betokens that he is also the giver of death. Though unable to enter fully into subject here, I will nevertheless state that I can produce further data to prove that the human face was frequently employed for a symbolic purpose by Native American races who were evidently entirely under the dominion of the idea of duality of the above and below, and the life-producing union of both. Come on, cub. That's all I be saying, man. And I ain't get it from this book, man. You just look at life, look at, like, you use the knowledge that you gain, which, you know, when it is applied correctly, it translates into wisdom, right? The wisdom that I acquired, cause that's what I see. Exactly what I've been saying. The question why the spider named Takat. So the question why the spider named Takat is Nawat should have been adopted as the chief symbol of Michelin Tekutili occupied me much until I have found the clue to its significance in the Mayan language. And this word for north is Aman. and the name for the spider whose bite is mortal is right? The striking fact may be interpreted. Remember, north is a symbol for the below, right? It's for the female region, right? And just telling you, and the spider is also a symbol. It wasn't included in that, which y'all seen, but it's also a symbol of the below or Michelin technically, right? In this word, the north is Aman, and the name for the spider whose bite is mortal is This striking fact may be interpreted as a positive proof that the spider symbol employed have originated in Yucatan, right? So from the mere harmony of the two Maya words, right? So now this what that just told you, is told you what it told you, the symbolism and all that, right? But it also telling you that the ancient Mexicans or the so-called Aztecs, right? Which wasn't a fucking name either, but the so-called Aztecs got their knowledge from the ancient Mayans, which they did, right? But they just perverted it later. Like then you had Europeans come in and take over the Aztecs and a whole lot of other fuck shit, right? Or other Eurasians and shit. Not just Europeans, Asians too. Um, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was a lot right there, cuz. Now let's continue on. So, cause yeah, what I was saying it was the Mayans. They learned a lot of the knowledge from the Aztecs. Learned a lot of the knowledge from the Mayans, but they are not the exact same people, right? At first they were, but later on, other motherfuckers came in and took over, and they started doing a whole lot of wicked shit. I'm just say that, right? On the other hand, shell gorgets exhibiting the effigy of a spider and obviously intended to be worn with its head turned downwards have not only been found in Illinois, but also in Tennessee and Missouri. On the gorgets from the latter states, a cross is carved on the body of the spider. A certain As certain spiders exhibit cross marking, it is of course possible that it was chosen as a cross symbol for this reason only in some localities, just as a butterfly was evidently adopted in Mexico as a apt image of the center and the four quarters on account of its shape and its possession of four wings. The conventionalized figures of a butterfly with a star on its body and four balls painted with the colors of those quarters was a sacred symbol which is mentally my bad y'all described by Sauergon is figured on a manta and being a mess. A glance at its reproduction shows the form of the insect has been conventionalized so that so as to resemble the Olin, my bad, damn, fucked up, choppy read, and other Mexican cross symbols. All right, let's move on to the next page. But I hope y'all got that last part. So that was basically just breaking down the what these different symbols represented and why, right? Or her thought process of why they represented these certain things, right? Because it can be true what she's saying, but it can be a lot more to it as well, right? Now, remember this book came out in the late 1800s, right? So, and this lady been studying this shit for years and writing books and all type of shit on there. And actually, there at certain times talking to certain people to acquire the knowledge that she has. Right. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Though. All right. 48. All right. The eye or star in the center. All right. So this now when y'all be seeing even with that hand, when y'all be seeing that eye in the center, yeah, it represents different things, but the at its root that was Polaris, cause that was actual star, right? All seeing eye, whatever y'all want to say, right? All of that goes back to this. The star, the eye or star in the center like that, and Olin and circle signify Polaris. The conventionalized head and antenna are obviously made to convey the idea of two and one, of the above and below united in the center. I venture to suggest that the dragonfly was employed as a cross symbol in an analogous manner on the Algonquin. Y'all seeing how this shit connecting, right? So if y'all seen, I know y'all seen my other content, right? Of how I draw a lot of connections from the Mayans to us North American Indians, right? Whether no matter what region, in Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, Southwest, right? But I draw, correlations between all of us, right? But not only when it comes to the Powhatan, the name, well, the Algonquin tribes, or in the Powhatan Confederacy, the name Powhatan um, symbolized different things. It was actually comes from the Mayan or the Olmec, the sheep, right? And it's two words, right? And it has some astronomy sees this, the solstice and equinox, all of it comes back. But it's funny that she wrote this, and I be teaching this shit all the time as far as in the relations between a southeast, northeast, midwest, even southwest with the ancient Mayans, right? I venture to suggest that the dragonfly was employed as a cross symbol in a not in a in an anomalous manner on the Algonquin garment preserved at Rijksmuseum, Stockholm, and described by Dr. Stope in his admirable study on the American art. As I shall revert to it later on, I can now draw special attention to the circumstance that instead of a cross on a spider gorget from Tennessee, there is a round hole which, when the shell disc is held aloft, lets a ray of light shine through it and furnishes an part. What is apt? What is the fuck is that? I got. What the fuck does that mean? I keep saying that. Apt presentation of a star. This is the cross furnish. This this and the cross furnish analogies to the Mexican and Maya symbols of the Polaris, which are too obvious to need to be emphasized. Nor do these gorgets alone furnish the undeniable indication that the identical symbolism extended from Yucatan to Illinois. Let me read that part again. I chopped it up. This and the cross furnish analogies to the Mexican and Maya symbols of Polaris, which are too obvious to be emphasized, nor do these gorgets alone furnish an undeniable indication that an identical symbolism extended from Yucatan to Illinois. And what's in Illinois? Ain't the Cahokia Mounds in Illinois? All right. Other gorgets also figured in Mr. Holmes' monograph Art and Shells, several of which are in the Peabody Museum from the stone graves in Tennessee, exhibit variously carved representations of a serpent. In all specimens, the identical idea is carried out. The eye of the serpent forms the center of the design on the disc, and the four circles on the body of the reptile, or four solid bars, interpreting a hollow line encircling a central motive, emphasize a division of the disc into four equal parts. Let me change this so y'all can see what they talking about. All right. Look at that cross in the yard. Just look at this shit, right? Now this is just her redrawing what she's seen on ancient artifacts and shit. So the idea of the serpent in repose, the center, and the four quarters is thoroughly carried out, and the true meaning of the design is only appreciated by the light of the Maya and Mexican symbolism, which has already been so fully discussed. The third Tennessee Gorget here in figure 22 from Mr. Holmes' work exhibits a combination of numerals which are particularly interesting if confronted with the sacred numbers of the Mexicans and Mayas, right? From a central circle, three curved lines issue in a fashion resembling those on figure 21, number 2, but the fact that the circular, band exhibits 7 double circles and the outer edge is divided into 13 parts is of special moment. She wrote kind of retarded. Still another design on a shell gorget from Tennessee not only exhibits the peculiarity pointed out by Mr. Holmes of a square with loops resembling center or certain figures in Mexican codices, but also other significant details which I shall point out. The cross in the center occupies the center of a star, which 8 rays and the 4 bird heads at the sides of the square illustrate rotation from left to right. I am inclined to view in this gorget an emblem of Polaris with Cassiopeia in rotation around it. It figured as a bird, but whether this was the case or not, it must be conceded that it is indeed remarkable to find a set of symbols consisting of the spider, the cross, the serpent, and the bird carved on prehistoric gorgets found in the United States, whilst the deep meaning of these identical symbols is furnished by Maya and Mexican records. I venture to remark here that they're no more expressive and appropriate ornament than these shell gorgets could have been designed or worn by the ancient or Mexican priests, prophets, or remote past had guided themselves by a light of Polaris and instituted this code as the bias of their native religion. Let me change this. Yeah, so it's this shit. It's a whole lot of gems in this, and we gonna get to this. I just don't. I know me reading. Unless you hear like really from the information, you really want to learn more about what I'm talking about. Like it could be boring, right? Because I'm not getting on nobody. I'm not getting on nobody's head, chopping them down with the information as far as it going against anybody. I'm just sharing what I'm reading, right? So so I don't want to make it too drawn out. This is actually the last page for the day, and then we gonna do another 10 or 20 in 2 or 3 days. If not tomorrow, I'll just be having a lot of shit going on. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna go on tomorrow, but then I got some pop up. So, but yeah, we gonna get to it though. Where I left off at. Now I'm gonna read that last sentence. No, this ain't the new page. This ain't the last page right here. This the last page. Cause this the last one I screenshotted. But I'm gonna have hopefully I'll be able to come back in and just do it tomorrow. Cause I don't think I should be having too much going on tomorrow. But yeah. Excuse me. So I'm gonna read that from the last sentence again, just so we can this part, matter of fact, this page 52 and 53. The next session, we gonna learn about Pleiades and all of that, right? All right, let me just read this. I venture to remark here that no more expressive and appropriate ornament than these shell gorgets could have been designed or worn by the ancient Maya or Mexican priests, prophets, and leaders who in a remote past has guided themselves by the light of Polaris and instituted its cult as the basis of their native religion. On realizing the above-mentioned identity of symbolism, it is impossible not to conclude that the prehistoric race which inhabited certain parts of the United States were under dominion of the same ideas as were the Mexicans and Mayas. The indications point, in fact, to the probability that the origin of the employment of the spider symbol originated in Yucatan. And if this be omitted, then there is no reason to deny possibility that the serpent symbol came from there also, since Maya language suggests as an affinity between the serpent Khan and the sky equals Ka'an, and the numeral 4 equals Khan. You feel me? So the Maya language and Khan means snake, of course, they just said it right. Serpent, it also means Ka'an means sky, and 4 means Khan, or Khan means 40, right? I refrain for the present from expressing any final conclusion on the subject, which will doubtless ample food for reflection and argument to all interested in the important problem as to where the cradle of the ancient American civilization was situated. Now, when she's saying that, so my personal opinion on that, as far as in where it was started, I'm not going to say it was started in one place. I don't believe that. I believe it started over here in the America, like civilizations, the type of knowledge and profound knowledge that we have comes and was from the Americas. The oldest people in the world are in the Americas, but I don't believe it was just one group of ancient Americans started it for all. Now, I believe that we traded knowledge, and and some were more intelligent than others, maybe at a certain time, because their focus was astronomy, agriculture, and different things, while others wasn't so much. Others probably was focused on war and some other shit, right? So I believe it was the exchange. It was trade. It was trade and language, culture, everything, pottery, everything, shit, foods, all of that. That's what the main shit was. Food. That's what started. I'm hungry, Kel. You got that over here. I got this over here. Let's trade. Yeah. Now I'm eating good over here. I'm eating like you, and you eating like me over there. Shit. And all of it's indigenous to the Americas. So really don't get no fuck. You feel me? So yeah, I feel as though trade is what kind of, you know what I mean? So if it was trade, that means it can't be one group of people because who the fuck is you trading with, right? So I don't believe that. Now I do believe at certain times, certain groups of people migrate. I know at certain times, I know at certain times that certain groups, like the ancient Mayans, migrated to the United States, or what we call the United States today, right? I know that for a fact. But yeah, that's what I believe on it. Let's continue, and we're gonna pick up hopefully tomorrow. I'm not giving no promises, but more than likely I will be on tomorrow. More than likely I'll be on tomorrow, right? And we're gonna pick off at Khan, right? I refrain for the present from expressing any final conclusion on the subject, which will doubtless afford ample food for reflection and argument to all interested in the important problem as to where the cradle of ancient American civilization was situated. But these symbolic grotesques go far to, hey, baby low, cut it out, man. But these symbolic grotesques go far towards, I can't see what the fuck I'm saying, go far towards sustaining Professor Putnam's oft expressed conclusions that the ancient peoples of the central and southern portions of the United States were to a certain extent offshoots of the ancient Mexicans. No fucking offshoots of no ancient Mexicans, cuz. One, Mayans probably, but ancient Mexicans ain't the Mexican we know of today, right? They ain't the original people there, but yeah, I ain't jacking that. Yeah, but we got more proof than she had back then. I'm just say that. Before abandoning the subject of native symbolism and star emblems, I should like to repeat as a curiosity with an appeal to specialist to enlighten me as the astronomical knowledge of the Eskimos, an Eskimo drawing from Professor Wilson, instructive and useful monograph. So the Eskimo symbol is that little star shit you see right there, them little crosses right there. That's the Eskimo symbol. It's said to represent a flock of birds, but so closely resembles Cassiopeia and Polaris that I am tempted to view it as an indication that the Eskimos may also have associated the idea of a celestial bird or birds wheeling around a central point with the constellation and the pole star. I don't believe that shit, but that's what she's saying, and that is not a fact though. Having this is her conjecture. Having once ventured so far afield, I cannot refrain from presenting here an interesting set of Aboriginal symbols, star symbols, produced from Professor Wilson's comprehensive work, each composed of a cross symbol combined with a single exception with a circle. I draw attention to the striking resemblance of some of these signs to those painted on the finely decorated pottery found on the Hasadena of Don Jose Lona in Nicaragua and described by J.F. Bransford, MD, Archaeological Researches in Nicaragua, Smithsonian Institute, 1888. All right, we're going to cut it off right here. Now, on the next page, they got a whole bunch of shell gorgets found in Missouri, Mississippi, and all that, but I don't have it screenshotted, so I have to leave out and go screenshot it and do all that. So we're going to pick up on this page where we left off, right? And then I'll be able to show you the gorgets and all the good shit. But yeah, family, I appreciate everybody for coming in, building with me. What it do, cuz? What it do? You already know we out here. Appreciate you, man. It should be uploaded within a couple hours. So if y'all want to, rewind it back from the beginning, if you missed anything, if you're interested in learning these gems and jewels, tap in and fuck with me. Y'all already know I'm just authentic. And I appreciate that, sis. And I'm gonna be 100 because y'all my people in here, right? A lot of people don't know too much about me, right? Even though I've been pushing this information for 6 years at least, right? And I've been knowing who I am a lot longer, right? But I don't tell people my personal life and shit, but I'm gonna tell y'all one thing. So I got shot a couple years ago. So I can't sit on live for mad long, sit in one spot for mad long. That's why I don't do it. That's one of the reasons, right? And I'm kind of like a private person. I really don't be giving a fuck what everybody think because I know what I know, you feel me? So I'm kind of, above the trying to prove shit to people, you feel me? I just want to share the information and knowledge with my people. That's where I'm at with it. Yeah. But yeah, so just so y'all know, when I say I got shot, I still got the bullets. I still got some bullets in me, right? I got surgery to get these shits removed. So my femur got shattered. I got hit with some big shit, right? I ain't gonna tell you the story, but I ain't gonna tell you everything, but I got hit with some big shit, right? My femur shattered, so I got a pole coming from my knee to my hip. You feel me? More people can't tell, you feel me? Because I already was walking with, how I walk with a swag, so they couldn't. I played off good. I'm gonna just say that. So I don't be sitting in one place too long and shit. But I'm definitely gonna come build. We're gonna get to this knowledge and get to it, people. For shit, y'all. But I appreciate everybody for tapping in with me. Love, Sherry. I appreciate everybody for tapping in with me. We gonna tap in tomorrow and get this cracking, man. I got a lot of information, a lot of knowledge that I'm gonna be sharing with y'all, cause that I just didn't even have the opportunity. Matter of fact, big sis in the comment, I'm glad you made it through because your voice is needed. I appreciate that, sis. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I got hit. What's crazy is I got hit a little bit before I started on TikTok. like probably like 7 years ago. I got yeah, but yeah, I'm glad I made it too because where they hit me, I could have been out of there. It could have been up a little bit more. I would have been out of there. But yeah, so the most, yeah, I'm definitely glad. Um, but yeah, yeah, we gonna get to it, y'all. We gonna get to it. It's a lot of information that I want to share with y'all. That I'm going to not that I want. I'm going to share with y'all, man. And we're gonna continue to build and build not only online, we're gonna do this shit in real life, you feel me? And we when we go places, we stepping how we stepping and not just in ignorance, we stepping in knowledge, you feel me? Not going there to actually I'm not gonna say learn because you always want to learn everywhere and anywhere every day, right? But we going there with the knowledge already in hand. We ain't looking for somebody to try to fool us, or nobody won't be able to fool us because we have the knowledge that we need to be able to combat any ignorant shit. You feel me? But I appreciate y'all, like I said, for tapping in with me. I am going to end it right here. This should be loaded up in a couple hours. I'm gonna come over there to TikTok. So anybody on TikTok, y'all go live and shit. I'm gonna come fuck with you. I'm gonna end it right now though, and I appreciate y'all once again for fucking with me. Peace, love, and power, y'all.